Warning. Warning. You are about to enter the propaganda report with Brad Binkley.
That's right, you've already entered.
Warning. Warning. You are about to enter the propaganda report with Brad Binkley.
That's right, you have entered the propaganda report. I am your host, Brad Binkley. Fulton County election fraud hasn't been exposed, with a special guest to talk about that subject today that this person is the foremost expert on. You guys have heard of the Epstein files. What about the Fani files? The Fanny files, some might call them. The Fanny Fulton files. Fannie Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, as Fulton County officials have admitted after 4 years that 315,000 or so votes, I believe it was, during the 2020 election were counted and verified without actually having the required signatures from the poll workers. That's the short of it. We're going to get the deep of it today. Fulton County, just a little background, you might recall, is where Trump was indicted on RICO charges stemming from that phone call that they play on MS Now, formerly MSNBC, with Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, where Trump said, "I need you to find me 11,000 votes," which a sane person who listens to the entire video, in my opinion, would interpret as someone believing the votes were there and just asking for them just to go find them. Then you can deploy your resources to other things. But that got spun into find me votes that weren't there, and that led to the RICO charges that were recently dismissed after Fannie Willis was dismissed from the case. She's the Fulton County DA again after her inappropriate relationship with Nathan Wade, her top prosecutor that she hired. Their sexual relationship was exposed. Has this election fraud, if it was there, or has it been exposed? We're going to find out, fact from fiction, what this means, and we're going to have the number one man to talk about this, the man, the myth, the legend, actually, Voter GA's one and only, Garland Favorito. Garland, it's been a while. Thanks for coming back to the show. Welcome. How are you?
Always a pleasure, Binkley. We're doing great. Things are hopping, as you know, on a daily basis. Hope you're doing well as also, and I see you are, I can tell.
Because I got the new look. I looked like a hippie with no glasses before. Now I look like a computer villain. You gave me a compliment. You said Clark Kentish, which that's a very kind interpretation. I appreciate that. What's your shirt say? I like that shirt.
Make elections great again. We are, there's our new apparel line that we have up on the voterga.org donate tab. So
I love it. I love it. And I always like to start when you were on the show, because I know we do have some new listeners now. First time I met Garland was when we were on WSP Radio, Monica and I, back in, I think, 2017, during there's a special election between Karen Handel and John Ossoff, and you were a guest on the show, and you believe that Karen Handel had gotten the benefit of some votes that maybe weren't there, and that maybe John Ossoff had actually won that election. The point being that you are not somebody who is coming in to be partisan, that you are committed to election integrity. And it was very easy for people when 2020 came around to brand you as something that you're not, which is a partisan player that was just trying to help Trump. You're doing the same thing that you've always done, and you continue to do that. And I appreciate your work greatly. And tell us what's going on in Fulton County. I know that there can be a lot of sensationalism around some of this stuff. I want to get down to the nitty-gritty of what's real and what's not.
Well, Brad, the first one I guess we will probably want to talk about is the complaint that David Cross brought, and it finally got a hearing after years of being in the hopper. A lot of the older board members have tried to suppress the state election board has been reconfigured. Now we've got a majority of folks who really care about election integrity, and this complaint was heard, and basically the evidence is pretty clear. David explained that the tabulator tapes for nearly all early voting are either missing or unsigned. And that represents roughly 315,000 ballots have unsigned or missing tabulator tapes, which calls into question the certification of every one of those votes.
No,
So,
what? Just a refresher on what the requirement of having those signatures. What does that mean?
well, if you don't have an authorized signature on the tabulation tape from a poll worker or a poll manager, then you really don't know whether or not the votes that are represented that you're certifying are in fact true and accurate.
Okay.
So it really calls into question all of them, and the board was, needless to say, a little bit perturbed about this, and they criminally referred Fulton County to the Attorney General and recommended $5,000 fine per tape that's missing. 148 tabulation tapes are either missing or unsigned, and another 148 zero tapes, which you used to start the day, are missing or unsigned. So the total potential impact of fines to Fulton County could be up to $1.4 million.
Well, that level of corruption fits with a history of Fulton County going way back, but going back to 2020, Fulton County was where that infamous flood happened when right at State Farm Arena when the votes were being counted. And then I know you've done a lot of work trying to get access, not just there, but around the state to just various aspects of the election where there's been problems that you have proven and you've gotten railroaded. Is this one of the issues that you have been going after for years as well?
Yeah, there's a whole variety of issues, Brad, a lot regarding Fulton County. We specifically have been trying to get the ballots. And as you know, from our previous case, we filed in December 23rd of 2020 because when the audit was conducted, poll workers, and these are senior poll managers, found counterfeit ballots in the count. And I was there that day when they found mail-in ballots that weren't creased from being mailed. They weren't written with a writing instrument. They were on inappropriate or incorrect paper stock. And they were voted the same way for dozens of ballots in a row, showing that they were pretty obviously counterfeit. So that led to our lawsuit in which we attempted to see the ballots so that we could verify whether or not there were counterfeit ballots. You probably know the story. A lot of listeners know that we had gotten quite a few favorable rulings from the judge, including a protective order on the ballots and the order to unseal the ballots. And then suddenly, after 10 months, he decided that we didn't have standing, which should have been decided in the first week or two of the trial. We appealed that all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court and won. They remanded the case back down. And the long and short of it is we still have not seen the ballots yet for the 2020 election, but we're getting some help now.
Okay, that's what I was leading into. Is this happening right now because of the change of the guard and people are feeling a little more comfortable addressing these issues now that everything's passed and we have Trump is back in office, and there's really there can be the post consequences like the fines to Fulton County if that happens, but definitely not as consequential as it would have been had it been uncovered when you were deep into the investigation of 3-4 years ago.
Exactly. I think that has a lot to do with it. Now it's after the fact. You can't go back and redo the election, and therefore there's a little bit less resistance. But the big thing that has come into play is that the DOJ has gotten involved, the United States Department of Justice. Yeah. Both the Criminal and Civil Division, State Election Board originally requested it. They subpoenaed the election records from Fulton County, didn't get them, turned around and subpoenaed the ballots from Fulton County, didn't get those. They requested DOJ to help out. We backed them up with a letter explaining all the problems that we have encountered, not only with Fulton County, but with the Secretary of State, who's covered up for Fulton County. And then we have gotten both the criminal and the civil divisions engaged with that. And as a result of their letters, suddenly the judge who in the state election board case, who happens to be the same judge in our case, has suddenly decided after receiving a couple of letters from DOJ that maybe he should release the ballots to the state election board. So he has done that. We have still not had a hearing. He's sat on our case for about 2 years now, and really a little bit over. So that's kind of the status of where we are. So hopefully we'll be able to tag along with the state election board on this, or I'm really not sure how it's going to end up, but we're still actively pursuing the ballots in Fulton County for the 2020 election, which they told me they don't have, but yet they told the courts that they have them. So they're lying to me or they're lying to them.
Right. And 315,000, that this was admitted at a state elections board meeting. Is this correct? Early in December?
Yeah. The attorney, who is another interesting story in herself, the attorney Ann Brumbaugh, who's representing Fulton County, admitted that we don't have them. So that's an admission. What's interesting about her is that she also is an attorney for Cherokee County, and she has one of the worst conflicts of interest I've ever seen in representing Fulton County while claiming to represent Cherokee and getting paid for representing Cherokee. Remember, all of these ballots that Fulton County never really had, they're probably counterfeit, at least some of them. They dilute the votes of not only all the folks in Cherokee County, but all the other counties around the country, around the state. So here she is standing up there representing Fulton County while getting paid to represent Cherokee County. And the voters of Cherokee should be really irritated about that because that is a conflict of interest. You can't serve two masters.
Well, I live in Cherokee County now. I didn't at the time during the vote, so maybe I'll go express my my complaint at the courthouse next time there's a public presentation or something to do that. Which I think, Eric, go ahead.
No, please do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get some help.
Yeah, it's people are starting to talk about this. Not getting a lot of outside of maybe Fox News, not getting a lot of attention, especially when you have the Epstein files that came out. That's going to get the bulk of attention. But what is the pushback to this from Fulton County? What if this has been admitted with the 315,000? First of all, is there any evidence of what impact that would have had or wouldn't have had on the election? And for me, when I hear something like that, and I know you think like this too, I think, well, did this happen in other counties across the state? And how do we find out if there's a similar pattern that went on? But what's like the practical impact that we know of, and what is their pushback on it?
Well, the practical impact, I think you already kind of alluded to that at the start of the show, is that you really don't know what the results are. I mean, the results should not have been certified with 300, tabular text missing for 315,000 ballots. They should have never been certified. They can't be possibly considered to be correct and accurate. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be many more cases coming out as early as next month, exposing more and more problems with Fulton County. But to your point, it's not just Fulton County. We did this statewide ballot image analysis, and we found that there were 1.7 million original 2020 ballot images missing just 6 months after the election was conducted, when they were supposed to have been preserved for 2 years. So right. That's another problem that impacts not just Fulton County, but other counties around the state.
It makes me think of just making the title for this show, which I believe I made it Fulton County fraud exposed, Fulton County election fraud exposed, question mark, with Garland Favorito, and Facebook would not let me use that title. I had to change it on Facebook because they still will not allow you to put election questioning videos on their platform, even though they seem to state otherwise. I thought that was interesting. And we would get videos taken down. We would be suppressed. You're called a conspiracy theorist. You're called crazy. You're attacked by the media. I used to show you articles where they would just make stuff up about you a few years back. They would just make up quotes that you said to try and discredit you. And now some of these things seem to be proving to be true. What happens if, and I do want to get back to what the response has been from Fulton County, but what happens if it is definitively in the end shown that the 2020 election was not won by Joe Biden? What's the impact of that?
Well, Brad, there isn't much impact at this stage in the game. Had he still been in office, they could have executed a quo warranto against him to remove him from office since if he was illegitimately elected. But again, this is just one state, so
right.
There were three. He had electoral votes in 6 states that were in question. 3 of them would have been necessary to flip the presidential election results. Georgia alone would not have been enough. But what's interesting about this is that since you mentioned that Facebook had prevented you from using this title, and they're still all about this, not talking about election fraud, we have to remember that Facebook was founded, as you know, by Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg spent $330 million on the Center for Technology, Civics, and Life to essentially buy the 2020 election in those 6 battleground state counties. And in Georgia, for example, they spent $45 million, and that was spent in 94% counties won by Joe Biden. 94% of the money was spent in counties won by Joe Biden. They required a partisan get out the vote efforts, unsecured drop boxes, and then they wanted to provide free technical resources so that they can control the electronic voting systems. And that appears to be what they did in Fulton County with this other group that called the Elections Group, which is a CTCL funding group. And they were working behind the scenes with Fulton County on the electronic aspects of the Fulton County 2020 election.
Yeah, Grubinator on the chat says Wastebook is what he called it. I think that's a good name for Facebook. Who is held accountable for this? What are the consequences? Is it it was just mistakes and we fired the people like they usually do? And what are Fulton County officials saying in response to all of this?
Well, Rob Pitts is saying that he can't understand why everyone is infatuated over the 2020 election. Well, the simple answer to that is show us the ballots. He's hidden the ballots from the people and the voters of Georgia for 5 years, and he wonders why people are concerned.
Right.
So that's Rob Pitts. And what's interesting about this?
It's in the past. That's the response. So it's not a denial. It's who cares? It's 5 years ago.
Yeah, and now he has this new compatriot that's helping him out, and it goes under the name of Fox 5 Atlanta and Deidre Dukes. And they're interviewing him and trying to put these soft pieces out to try to allow him to defend himself without providing a shred of the actual evidence that has been uncovered about Fulton County.
Yeah, I'm sure he misdirects to things that can probably Epstein files and stuff like that, if I had to guess. It makes me think of the AJC, which funded by the Google News Initiative. I believe they got some money from the Facebook News Initiative that They did these studies a few years back that determined that people trust their local news media sources more, and so started funneling all this money into local sources because people are losing trust from the mainstream. And then these local sources, AJC specifically, just became mouthpieces like CNN South or MSNBC South, and you start seeing the journalist from AJC appearing on MSNBC regularly, posting about Tim Walz, Kamala Harris rallies, but not actually giving the specific dates. And then I would find them, and I'd go to these things trying to interview people, and I would see the AJC people getting out of the van with Tim Walz, and it's like, oh, clearly they've captured the local media, and it seems like they're going to be doing a diversion effort here as well. But I do love the excuse of, that's in the past, who cares? Even though election integrity is so crucial moving forward. For really, it's everything in this country. If you can't trust the elections, I don't tend to vote in presidential elections because I'm disillusioned by them. Local elections, I will vote in, but that disillusionment, I think a lot of people feel that because the integrity of elections has been broken, and reestablishing that trust moving forward is important. And I think that's why this is important, and why the work that you do is so important. So what happens next with all this?
Well, first of all, one of the good news is that the AJC, and you might probably know this, but it had in 2005 it had 630,000 print subscribers. That number has decreased to 40,000 print subscribers this year, and in 2026 it will go to 0 because the AJC is going out of the print business.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that with the state election board, Dr. Jan Johnston asked one of the journalists who had been lying about the state election board, she said, do you think all this decrease in print subscribers is because you just can't tell the truth? It was great. We loved it, but we had a good time there.
That's a great question. What was the answer?
Well, he didn't answer.
Was it Greg?
In this particular case was Caleb Groves. Okay. And she had also pointed out how Mark Nisi had come up with a false story. Literally just a couple of weeks later, he was gone from the AJC. We don't know exactly what happened there. Now we got this guy named Caleb Groves. I understand the AJC's is doing a hit piece on me now. As their last dying breath before they go out of print business. Dave Rickert is, interviewed me, and they're working on something. I'm sure it's not going to be favorable. They've gotten all the evidence of the corruption in Fulton County. I suspect that you're going to see them again cover it up and then try to attack me, my credibility.
I just wonder what angle they go. I mean, take quotes out of context is an easy thing to do to anybody, but you don't have a background like most of these politicians do, where you can be smeared like them. I just wonder what angle they're going to take against you because your work is so thorough and proven.
Well, I think you alluded to at the top of the show. It was basically, I'm a conspiracy theorist.
That's
blah,
the go-to.
I
crackpot conspiracy theorist who thinks that the JFK wasn't a lone shooter, stuff like that is probably what they'll go to.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter. I explained to them, gave them a quote. I said, look, I've testified as an expert witness in Georgia and outside of Georgia multiple times. So I think that should answer the credibility questions.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what the hit piece looks like. Maybe we can bring you back on. We can have a good laugh and read through it and correct the record on what they say. What is this? So you read this on the surface and you think about the phone call, the 11,000 thing that was used to do this whole RICO indictment against Trump. And then you see 315,000 votes. It's been admitted they weren't properly, they weren't signed. And so almost like you can, I guess, throw them out, right? If they're not signed, they shouldn't have been counted at all. And we don't know which way those votes would have gone. Is that correct?
Right. They should have not been counted at all until they got those things signed appropriately. And Fulton County was a 70-30% Democrat county. So that those votes alone would have been enough to change the outcome of the election, which was decided by 11,779 votes. And it would have changed not only that, but the U.S. Senate race, because David Perdue was about 20,000 and change from basically winning that U.S. Senate seat outright. So those votes alone would have turned both the presidential race and the United States Senate race. And that also, remember, that resulted in the balance of control swapping from Republican to Democrat. So huge, right. It's a huge deal. And you asked me with what's next. We're going to have probably more and more evidence coming out. This is not the first or only thing that was wrong in Fulton County in the 2020 general election.
Yeah. Is there any way to find out which way those votes went? You have to show you the ballots. I know you've been asking for that, but is there any possibility of that ever happening?
Well, it represents almost all of early voting. Right. So the totals of early voting.
Percentage-wise went to Trump, right?
I'm sorry. What?
They went to Trump, the early voting.
No, not in Fulton County. In Fulton County, it's about 2-1 or 3-1. It's about a 70-30 county. Okay. So in other words, 70% of the votes go to Biden, 30% go to Trump. So let's say you take out, if it's 315,000 votes, then probably 215,000 of them were for Biden. Okay. And 100,000 for Trump. So if they were not legitimate votes because they were not certified properly with the poll tapes signed, then you have to subtract those from the totals, and that would flip the election of not only the presidential race, but it would also flip the election of the U.S. Senate race as well.
And it seems that the consequences for this would be millions of dollars in punishment to Fulton County, which that would be a burden. Would that end up on the shoulders of the taxpayers in like Brookhaven and areas like that were trying to break free from Fulton County?
Yeah, well, Brookhaven's actually in DeKalb County, but yes, absolutely, because I'm in Fulton County, so I would shoulder that burden, of that fine. As well as all the recovery that the victims of Fannie Willis's prosecution is going to entail. That's another probably going to be probably a $20 million expenditure there to recoup the costs from the false prosecution.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Fannie definitely and her role, and that probably I love Fannie Willis is so corrupt. Were you in the room at the Georgia Elections Board meeting when this admission was made?
The Georgia Elections Board, this is the 315,000.
Yeah.
I was in the room the following day. I did watch it online because David is a good friend, and we work on a lot of stuff together. So I was watching online. I was there the next day. And for the hearing, it was a 2-day hearing.
What was the reaction like in the room? I know seeing it online, there's been so many claims made by so many different people, many of them sensational, which I think causes people to, when they hear legit claims like you've made, to dismiss them because of sensational ones. What was the impact of what this meant felt and the reaction like, holy cow?
Well, I think probably the holy cow came afterwards when the news media began to digest the serious nature of
and cover up is what
just happened. Yeah. So the conservative media putting it out, the mainstream media trying to make excuses for what happened. The best excuse I've heard so far, and the most ridiculous, is from Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
Governor candidate.
who claimed that this was a clerical error. And I've been asked multiple times, is that true? And I've told everybody the same thing. A clerical error is when you have one tape that's missing or unsigned, maybe two, but 148 tapes missing and unsigned, and the zero tapes, that's another 148. That is not a clerical error.
It's clerical catastrophe.
Exactly. And I think that David used the term, it's a catastrophic chain of custody break.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And that the chain of custody right there, that to me, that clarifies a lot of that. It's like where the ballots go, you have to know where they are at every moment, because if there's a break in that chain of custody, then they could be manipulated. So therefore they're invalidated. And that's why, for me, that this is it's really a huge story that it's being kind of nonchalantly covered by a lot of people. But you mentioned Raffensperger there, who is a Republican candidate for governor. And he is a guy who you sat down with, right? And you warned him about problems with Dominion voting machines. Now, I don't know if the voting machines have anything related to do with that, but I know there's been proven instances of the ability to hack them in court. And just tell me about his role in all of this, and if you think he has a chance to win the Republican nomination for governor.
Well, no, I don't think he can run as a Republican. The Republican Party platform, when they had the convention, the party voted to not allow him to run as a Republican.
Good.
So now the question is, are they going to uphold their platform and attempt to prevent him from running under the Republican banner? I think there is some concern. There are some folks who lean more in the establishment and they say, well, let him run. But then you've got the other folks that are more principled, a lot of them representing the Georgia Republican Assembly, and they do not believe that he's qualified to run. We produced a study that's on the voterga.org studies tab, and the title of that is The Republicans Rejected Raffensperger, and So Should We. So it goes through how he betrayed the Republican Party and the voters of Georgia by essentially aligning himself and his office over and over with these rabid partisan anti-Trump people who have election service companies and provided services to the Secretary of State. That includes David Becker and Eric, the Center for Election Innovation Research, CEIR, which is a Mark Zuckerberg and David Becker organization. CTCL, we talked about that with Zuckerberg. Voting Works, Benedita, and who conducted the audit, rabid anti-Trump people who have posted nasty stuff on social media. And then you've got Dominion and Eric Coomer as the former vice president of strategy and system security, I believe it was. And he is also shown to be another rabid anti-Trump individual. So the question you've got is, why would Brad Raffensperger align himself with these rabid individuals after they had posted on their own social media platforms just horrible stuff about not only Donald Trump, but the Republican Party in general?
I mean, he's the reason for that RICO case.
Well, you say, is Raffensperger the reason?
No, my claim is that he is, because that phone call, he could have easily said, no, he wasn't asking. Like, he could have easily cleared that up, but he instead left it vague and didn't actually directly answer questions. He was asked many times, do you feel like Trump was threatening you? And he would just not answer and change the subject because he wanted the exposure that he was getting by all the Democrat left-leaning networks, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but Fonnie Willis was hell bent on bringing that case because it was driven by Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
We now know that a couple of things. We know that she solicited. Now, just let me back up a minute. A district attorney, if someone comes into your county and commits a crime, that's something that you can prosecute. And that's what she says. They came into my county and committed a crime. Well, that's a lie. The majority of people she indicted hadn't been in Fulton County.
Right. Yeah.
And she went to solicit. They showed an email at that hearing that you're referring to. They showed a memo that was sent to Representative Benny Thompson, the head of the J6 committee, asking for research that they had done. And this was before she had ever opened the special grand jury. So she was soliciting evidence outside of Fulton County before she had ever opened the special grand jury. So that is in itself prosecutorial misconduct, just in the initiation of it.
Yep.
And on top of that, the whole thing started when she went to the Fulton County Commission office and said that she wanted $5 million a year to reduce the murder case backlog in Fulton County. Of course, they gave her the money, and then that was in January.
She gave it to Nathan Wade. Right after that, he had to bring him.
She hired Nathan Wade within a month or 6 weeks after that, and then as soon as she got that first $5 million check, she basically opened that investigation into 18 of her political adversaries.
It's crazy.
And indicted them.
It's what this woman thought she was able to get away with, and she's still the Fulton County DA. I mean, she had been thrown off of another case prior to the RICO case for throwing a fundraiser for a Democrat candidate that was running against, I can't remember who it was, but the Republican that she was bringing charges against.
Well, right. So she was trying to indict Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and while she was holding, or after she was held a fundraiser for what his eventual Lieutenant Governor opponent, Charlie Bailey. I mean,
it's crazy.
I know. And even Judge McBurney had to say that, what were you thinking on that? That's crazy. So he had to, he booted her off that case.
And then she did the same to Nathan Wade. I want to repeat the beating off phrase, but Nathan Wade got a lot of that, and he got paid for it very well to come in and have sex with her after he was having sex with another woman in Cobb County for also being fraudulent. And when you look at it, the whole thing, it's like Gotham City, Fulton County is, and the fact that some of it is coming out now is a really good thing. What you have a slideshow here. Is there anything specific you want to get into? You got a couple PDFs you sent me here about her and her political adversaries.
Yeah, or we can just talk to it.
Okay.
Or however you want to do it. So in Fulton County, there's quite a few interesting things that came up. And the prosecuting attorney's council produced a report that said exactly what our report said 2 years earlier when we called for her impeachment.
Yeah.
And it's, he said that the Republican electors have no criminal intent. Yeah, the prosecuting attorney's council, for those who don't know, is kind of a rogue organization. They're not really they don't really have a reporting duty to anyone, not in the judicial or executive branch. They're funded by the legislature. So that's a little bit about them. And then if you slide on down, we talked about the background. We talked about that, but here, there's an interesting one right there. And this sums it up a lot. The prosecutors got more control over life, liberty, and reputation than any other person in America. I don't think people know that. They think that the president of the United States has a lot of control. But as we see with Tina Peters, he still hasn't gotten her out of jail yet. But the prosecutor...
she's the one in Michigan, is that right?
She's in Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. But also, they had people indicted in Michigan as well, though, as you mentioned it. Matt DePerno and Stephanie Lambert, the attorney general, corrupt attorney general there, is going after them. Dana Nessel, after her opponent, Matt DePerno, ran against her. So it's really, really corrupt there. But I think people need to understand that the district attorney in your county has more control over your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness than the president of the United States. So,
yeah. That's why they try and capture these district attorneys, the big money billionaires. And, Fannie Willis, her thing was RICO cases. That was what her thing was. And she got in primarily. She accused the guy that had been her best buddy for 15 years that she worked under. She just decided to do a #MeToo against him, and then was kind of inserted running on a platform of I'm going to get Trump, basically. And that's how she gets in, and she does another RICO case, which I tell people about Fannie is Fannie. She did the RICO case against the Atlanta school cheating scandal, and she was prosecuting a bunch of black women. Some of them were not. Some of them wrongly prosecuted that ended up in jail because she was ambitious and she didn't care about the truth. And that's why, because people try to do the racial defenses of it, black versus white. Fannie don't care about race when it comes to rising the political ladder in Gotham City, that is Fulton County. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but your point about the prosecutors having so much power is I completely agree. I don't think people realize, because the local politics we don't really focus on as much. We were so focused on the sensationalism and the national stuff that stuff can kind of go under the radar.
Well, Brad, you talked about her ambition. I mean, what came out in this hearing that I attended, I guess a week before last,
yeah,
was that she was tracking her publicity value of her name in the cases. And
wow.
It started off, it's unbelievable. In fact, if you want to see some of the graphs, they're down there towards the end. And it was showing, where it was 15 million. Going back up a little bit further. Yeah, it was, there's one really good graph there that's on a white background. I think you'll see it in just a second, unless I sent you the wrong one. Oh, I think I sent you the wrong one. My bad.
That's all right.
So anyway, but her publicity value was rated at $633 million for this case. And she had hired a guy who was working for Fulton County, and he was also essentially double dipping because he was a founder of a publicity firm, and he was being paid by Fulton County to track the publicity value of her name while he was also working for the company that he helped found. Incredible situation there.
That's wild. And so you were inside the room so Fannie, a little bit of background, she had a hearing here in Georgia that was kind of like the national one she did. Was it last year, 2020 or 2024? Yeah. But she was being questioned about her, Nathan Wade and the improper relationship before officially being thrown off the case for finality. But she expressed and demonstrated just as much arrogance and entitlement as she did in the other one. I would have loved to have been in the room. I bet it was crazy.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy, and this was the Senate hearing. It was in the Capitol, and it was a Senate judiciary, actually it was a special investigations hearing. And here's what's interesting. We talked about D.C., Washington, D.C. drove this investigation. It was the whole concept of the RICO case, we believe, came out of Washington, D.C. I don't even think it was Fannie Willis's. But what was interesting is during this hearing, they showed the receipts. They showed the Nathan Wade, how he was billing for conversations with the J6 committee and the White House counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got it listed on his billing records.
Nathan Wade, the guy that she paid, that she got thrown off for having a sexual relationship with the top prosecutor, he was meeting with the White House and J6 counsel. Yeah.
Exactly, her boyfriend. And they had a whole crew of 4 attorneys go up and meet with the J6 committee in April of 22. 4 different attorneys, including Nathan Wade, met there April of 22. And then what's interesting, that suddenly they got hot and heavy the day after President Trump declared he was going to run for re-election, and that was November 15th, 2022. And in the next day, Nathan Wade is talking with the White House legal counsel and I think the J6 committee within that 2-3 day span. And that's all a matter of his own public billing records.
Yeah. Some of this was revealed a few years ago, or when this other case was going on. And again, it comes out, it's just dismissed as conspiracy theory. But, you know, it's good that it finally comes out. She needs to be, I don't know if you impeach the DA there. It's crazy that she still won elections so easily. I think she won like almost 70 to 30, something like that, which kind of is consistent with the Democrat voting thing. But she's pure identity politics. It's her and Stacey Abrams fighting for Baconators over there in Fulton County. And I'm glad her corruption has been exposed, and I think it should reach the national spotlight. Everybody's so ideologically aligned, though, they're willing to kind of dismiss corruption as long as the people say the thing that they want to say. What is your hope for election integrity with all this coming out moving forward? How can we use this to fix elections locally and nationally?
Well, yeah, great question, Brad. So first of all, in regards to Fani Willis, I think she could face disbarment, she could face impeachment, and she could face criminal prosecution for prosecutorial misconduct. And I think she should face all three of those. I mean, this is the worst case of prosecutorial misconduct, I believe, in American history.
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's beyond belief. And the fact that she's so arrogant and thinks that nobody sees it is really, really remarkable. But we've kind of, to get to your point, we've kind of opened the door for some real change here. You've got the Fani Willis dismissal. You've got the work of this particular case with David Cross. There are more cases coming next month. I'm expected to be able to be testifying again about Joe Rossi's case, and which has got all kinds of other problems with Fulton County election results in that same 2020 election. That's breaking. We have got the petition, or now it's a federal lawsuit to ban or vacate the Dominion certification. We have found out that the Dominion voting system was never legitimately certified in 2019 based on 2005 standards that it never met 14 years later. So that's a huge deal. That will be coming. So many things are going on here in Georgia.
You warned Raffensperger, right, about, was it that exactly, or was it just related issues before they implemented the Dominion voting machines?
Right. We warned him about the QR coded voting system, not to buy one. We gave him other options. And from all the vendors, not just the vendor, several vendors have these QR coded voting system. We told him to avoid those. He didn't. He purchased one, and this is where he has ended up. So he's his own worst enemy. He brought these troubles and problems on himself. But it's really exciting. We have gotten our voting system security recommendations published, given them to the House Election Study Committee. They are up on our voterga.org studies tab. We've been doing work on how to conduct elections based on President Trump's upcoming election initiative. So it's real exciting right now. just last Monday, I think it was, Steve Bannon gave us a huge shout out on War Room. I was on there to lead off his show after AmFest, and we talked all about these problems here in Georgia, the three problems we've discussed today, Brad, on the propaganda report. So things are breaking big time here, and we're really excited. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve. We've got most of our stuff set up, but we are looking forward to a really good year. I just hope we can deal with these machines in a timely manner before the 2026 primaries.
What do you so I've heard some talk, and I have no idea. I've just heard the theory being floated that the Venezuelan boat targeting is not just about drugs, it's also related to Dominion voting machines. Is there any truth to that you have found?
Yes, there is. And Emerald Robinson is right on top of the story for Lindell TV. And Patrick Byrne has, literally risked his life and his fortune to expose all this. But so just the quick overview is that the Dominion acquired Sequoia from Smartmatic. And we believe that included Smartmatic software. Smartmatic had updated Sequoia over the 5 years it had it to use their software, and that software ties back to Venezuela. Venezuela had, I think, a 28% stake in Smartmatic, so it's a government owned, and it's then there's all the cartel connections with to the Venezuelan Maduro regime. So all of that is in play, and Cartel del Sols, and it appears that they have developed this software with the intent to basically steal elections. So on the other end of it, what we have found that seems to support what Patrick Byrne has found and Emerald Robinson, what she's reporting, we have found that the voting system does in fact have a backdoor, and they are all interconnected worldwide through an X.509 certificate and a common shared value. It's like giving everybody the same password worldwide.
Yep.
That came out in unrefuted expert witness testimony in September 30th of 2024. And that is the testimony and forensic analysis that we used to file our federal lawsuit, which was we filed after we filed the EAC petition, and they were not able or willing to act fast enough, although they recognized the significance of our petition and took it in and accepted it for future consideration. They're not going to be able to move fast enough in our time frame. So that's why we are filing suit. But the other thing that we learned, Brad, you'll be interested in this, is that when they did the forensic analysis of the only server that's ever been analyzed, the only election server ever analyzed in Georgia was a 2020 Georgia Coffee County server. They found that 3,000 program files had been modified after it was installed. 3,000. And they found on the system a compiler that allows you to basically a programmer to input instructions, generate it into machine code, and then deploy it wherever he or she would like to, all without detection. That's the only server that's ever been forensically analyzed. You would think as soon as that happened, that the Secretary of State would want to look at all the other 158 servers.
That's a clerical error, as Brad Raffensperger might say.
Right. I mean, this guy is involved in massive corruption.
I would like to know where he was born, because it's not exactly clear. It could be Canada. You can probably run for governor even if you're born in Canada and Georgia. I don't know, but his background is very unique to say the least. I've even floated, of course, I don't think there's any way I would be able to get on any of the debates, running for governor specifically to promote my podcast and to do a live vetting of the other candidates, including not just Brad Raffensperger and others, but the journalists themselves with the questions they ask. That's more of a pipe dream that I would love to do. But it's these characters like Raffensperger, Fannie Willis, their backgrounds are all so shady, just like their actions that they show us all the time. And I'm glad people like you are holding them accountable. We got a couple. Garland, you're the man from WMS Words. Garland is a hammer. I love it. From the Grubinator. Yeah, you do great work. And I believe this is the federal lawsuit to vacate the Dominion certification is what this other tab is. Is there anything specific you wanted to show us on this?
Yeah. So the main thing is, Brad, that the system is supposed to store encryption keys in clear plain text. And I'm sorry, in an encryption module, but it stores it in clear plain text, which is a violation of the 2005 standards, which is actually goes all the way back to 2001.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is it has hard-coded passwords. So it was delivered with a hard-coded password. The password was never changed. That violates
like
standards.
0000.
It violates standards going all the way back to 1984. That's the famous password that is on the shirts that you can buy all around.
Oh, yes. So at the Georgia Elections Board meeting, at one of those meetings, a bunch of people showed up with T-shirts that had the password to the Dominion voting machines on them, correct?
Right. And that was a hard-coded password that's never been changed. It's supposed to have been changed upon delivery of the system. Never was. The Dominion has hard-coded scripts using that password, according to the testimony. And so these are incredibly severe security breaches. And no one in their right mind would conduct an election on this system.
Right, unless they were instructed to, or that was the reason they were there. So much incompetence can explain some things, but some incompetence seems a little too intentional, almost like you put those in for that back door when hand ballots would be much more secure. There's really no argument to not have hand ballots, and you've helped me see that more than anybody else. Garland, thanks for joining the show. It's always a pleasure. I could talk to you all day. I know you probably are having many requests, and you've probably been talking to people all day since this story broke. How can people help you guys? I know you guys are, Garland's legit when you see that, like me, he doesn't have the slick website that looks like all the other politicians, and he gets suppressed at every single turn. What can people do to spread the word for you and to help you guys raise the resources you need?
Well, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. So number one is all the information you need is up on voterj.org. You can see our legal briefs on the legal tab, our press conferences on the events tab. It's all there, studies on the studies tab. It's all there to get informed. That would be number one. Number two, the other thing you could do is to help us out a lot is to donate. And right now we have a special match going on. One of our sponsors is a real patriot, has agreed to triple match every donation, every dollar of every donation that we receive between now and the end of January. So that is going to help us tremendously because, if any of your listeners donate $25, that means it's $100 coming in. One of our supporters said, well, wait a minute, if you donate $444, that means it's $1,776. So,
nice. That's great.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A $2,500 donation will bring in $10,000. So 10 of those would pay for our whole federal lawsuit that we're filing most likely against the EAC.
That's important because it's not like you guys are taking donations and you're going out and buying boats with them. Is you're paying for lawsuits with them and all these attacks coming against you, and that stuff is not cheap.
Yeah, and the last thing that I almost forgot to mention, and you already know this, is that my wife and I are volunteers. Tamara and I are volunteers. We don't take any salary. We simply, in fact, we actually donate a significant amount of money ourselves, and we'll probably donate some more now that we've got this 3X match going. So that is the way that could really help us out right now because it quadruples your donation, and that will really make it effective for us. If for those who can afford to do so, there's never been a better time now.
Absolutely, and Garland's the real deal. If you want to put your money to efforts for voter integrity, he's been doing it the right way since the day I met him many years ago. Where can people get one of those mega shirts? Make election integrity great again.
They can go to the voterga.org donate tab, and we have got all kinds of apparel. We are just putting up our winter stuff. We've got some really cool pullovers with a huge scrolling logo. I should have brought one. Yeah, you can see one. That's it. But if you see the T-shirt over there on the right, that yellow T-shirt, you can now get that in a pullover as well in multiple colors. Red, white, and green, black, blue. For $100 donation, you get the pullover, a gift bag, shipped free, and we end up getting $400. So that's a huge deal for both the supporters and for us.
Fantastic. I'm going to pick up some of this stuff. This is good stuff here. Any events you got upcoming?
The next state election board is going to be interesting. It's going to be in Winder. I think I've got to double check my date there. But that's coming up, I think, second or third week in January. That is probably our next major thing. I don't have any speaking engagements at the moment. We're kind of winding down right now and gearing up for the legislative session. But we will probably have a press conference to announce our study committee recommendations in the first or second week in January, but we haven't set that date yet.
Fantastic, Garland. Thank you again. If you're up for it, I would love to do maybe a monthly voter integrity update in 2026 where you just tell us what's going on and maybe what public meetings we could attend or how we could help you. I know I'm always looking for some of these things, and you guys are a lot better at finding them than I am. So we can talk about that more after the show later, but I would love to do something like that. Is there anything else that you would like any parting words?
No, just thank you so much, Brad. I'm always glad to come back and do that.
I love having you on. You're a fan favorite. Follow Garland I know you're on X at VoterGA. What any other platforms that we should direct people to?
The Rumble channel is interesting. We're out there. We're on most of them, but X and Rumble are our primary platforms. And of course, the website is voterga.org.
Fantastic. Thank you, Garland. And you guys can follow me at Freedom Act Radio on X. All links in bio. No feet pics, though. And you can get subscriber content on patreon.com/propaganda report and propreport.locals.com, where you get the audio version of the show minus the ads. I take the ads out for subscribers, and you get access to the subscriber-only show that I do with Austin Picard and Sam Tripoli called Whatever This Is. Thanks again, Garland. It's been great. Thank you, everybody in the chat. You're getting nothing but love here in the chats, Garland. And we'll do it again soon. I hope you guys had a great Christmas and Happy New Year. We'll talk to y'all next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.